Hi, my name is Mark D. Copoulos, and I'm a Philadelphia criminal defense and real estate lawyer. One question that I often get when people come into my office or they call my office is, can I evict this tenant and how long is it going to take? And the first question usually depends on whether the landlord is compliant with the Philadelphia Code. Has he met the regulations that he's required to comply with, to the certificate of rental suitability, the lead safe certificate, all the documents that a landlord needs to have to legally collect rent and evict in the county of Philadelphia. The second question, how long is it going to take, is what I would like to focus on in this video blog. And it's really important to understand that in Philadelphia, it's fluid. So during COVID, it would take 6 months to 9 months to do an eviction. In 2022, things got better, and it was taking landlords as short as 3 months to process an eviction. In 2023, you may have seen in the news that there were recent issues where the landlord-tenant office has been actually sued by multiple tenants for shootings that happened during lockouts, and the time frame has now gone from maybe 3 months to anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So it's important to understand that it's a fluid process. Generally, pre-COVID, it would take about 2 months to do an eviction. Again, during COVID, up to 9 months. After COVID, somewhere between 3 and 5 months to get an eviction done. So one thing I would like to focus on is the post-judgment process. So by law in Pennsylvania, a landlord needs to wait at least 21 days before he can get the sheriff to his property, because he needs to wait 10 days from the court date to file a writ of possession. He needs to deliver that to the sheriff, and then he needs to wait another 11 days and file what's called an alias writ. He can take this to the sheriff to schedule a lockout. Now, the lockout doesn't usually happen 21 days after the court date, because you need to wait for the sheriff to have a date and time for the officer to come out and meet the landlord and change the locks. One thing most people don't understand is that in Philadelphia, you actually have options. So the landlord can choose to proceed by way of lockout either with the actual sheriff of Philadelphia or with a private entity called the Philadelphia Landlord-Tenant Officer. Now, traditionally, more than 80% of the time, it always made sense to proceed with the Philadelphia Landlord-Tenant Officer. They were cheaper. They were very efficient. The price of a lockout before September 2023 was about $160, whereas the Philadelphia Sheriff charged over $400, and both were about the same time. So it didn't even really make sense to consider the Philadelphia Sheriff. That has definitely started to change. And the reason why it started to change is because in September of 2023, the Landlord-Tenant Office raised their price for an eviction from $160 to $365. So now they're almost on parity with the Philadelphia Sheriff. Well, what about time to effectuate a lockout? Pre this whole incident in 2023, where the Landlord-Tenant Office closes and then reopens, about 6 weeks to get a lockout date. Now, there's massive backlog. We don't really know how long it's going to take. The Landlord-Tenant Office is open in name, but it's taking much longer, let's say, than 4 to 6 weeks, kind of that 2022 time frame to schedule a lockout, whereas the Philadelphia Sheriff seems to be very consistent right now at about 6 weeks to a lockout date. So one of your considerations in how long is it going to take me to process this eviction may be, am I going to use the Philadelphia Landlord-Tenant Office or am I going to use the Philadelphia Sheriff? And again, the Landlord-Tenant Office fluctuates. It may get faster. Whenever this blog is posted, the time frame may change. The Philadelphia Sheriff tends to be very, very consistent. They're obviously an organization in Philadelphia. They have hired lieutenants and sheriffs who do these types of things on a regular basis. And what you get is what you see with the Philadelphia Sheriff. So again, time frame for an eviction in Philadelphia, very fluid. In my 10 years of doing this, it's been anywhere from 2.5, 3 months to 6 or 7 months. Right after COVID, it got better. Now, you're probably at somewhere between 4 and 6 months. That could get better when the Landlord-Tenant Office clears their backlog. But it's an always fluid, changing situation. And that's why you should consult with a real estate lawyer when evaluating your eviction and how long is this realistically going to take. And when I win my case, when I get that order saying I can schedule the lockout, should I use the private landlord-tenant office or should I use the office of the Sheriff of Philadelphia? My name is Mark D. Copoulos. I'm a Philadelphia civil defense and real estate lawyer. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our office at 267-535-9776. And as always, thank you for watching my blog.